Welcome back into the Tide Talk podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Stacey Blackwood, once again joined by my good buddy, Jake Thomas. Jake, what's up, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great, Stacey. Good to be on tonight. And as always, at Tide Talk Podcast, you'll never have to worry about mustard being thrown on you.
no, no golf balls, no mustard, no bottles of water. We try to keep it safe and family friendly here on the Tide Talk podcast. Well, I don't know about family friendly. Sometimes we
Ah,
kind of we kind of get out of hand there, but
right. But I just want to say real quick before we jump in that I think it's an absolute ludicrous that our queen, Montana Fouts, didn't win homecoming queen. I mean,
yeah, I mean
that's
that's just
awful.
yeah. I mean you summed it up. That's a joke. It's that her not being homecoming queen is about as ludicrous as the SEC officials.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's enough on the officials because we could harp on that forever.
Well, yeah, we hammered on them pretty good earlier this week, and we'll kind of leave it at that. But as always, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline.ag. You know, football season's underway. That's college, pro. The NBA is in full swing now. Most teams have played at least one game. Major League Baseball is in a great playoff run right now. Our Atlanta Braves are one win away from heading to the World Series. So hopefully they can get that done tomorrow night. Max Scherzer will not be starting for the Dodgers tomorrow night. So that is big news out of LA. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But if you want to place a bet on the Braves, on Alabama, or just any NFL team, NBA team, or college football team, betonline.ag is the place to go. Head on over to their all new upgraded website, whether that's on your computer or on your mobile device. Sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using the promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Jake, we got that out of the way. We got a good show tonight because we're going to be talking about this great matchup between Alabama and Tennessee, Jake. It's a rivalry, really, that I think me and you both feel like it's Alabama's biggest rival. I don't care
Yeah.
what uh, other people say. I know the Auburn game is in state, but as far as hatred. I can't remember who said it. I feel like it may be Derrick Henry. Somebody said that we hate Auburn because we have to hate Auburn. We
Hmm.
hate Tennessee because we want to hate Tennessee.
That's right. That's
It's just
exactly right.
we hate those guys. Philip Fulmer is maybe a human that I cannot stand more than any other human.
Hmm.
So the hatred for them runs deep. So it just kind of feels like the biggest rivalry to me. And I cannot say that word, so I have to really slow it down when I get there.
Yeah. It's kind of tough, but yeah, they're snitches, and blah blah blah. Everything else that guy said. It's like a garbage truck convention up there. Which I mean, obviously they showed that last week, but I mean, my gracious. But yeah, this is our biggest rival, I believe, and I know little brother don't want to hear that, but the truth's the truth.
Yeah. So I want to pose a question. Each episode, we try to pose a question for everybody to jump in the YouTube comment section and kind of give their answer. And the question is Alabama and Tennessee the biggest rivalry? Is Tennessee Alabama's biggest rival? That's really the best way to phrase it. So if you think Tennessee is Alabama's biggest rival, put Y for yes or N for no there in the comment section. All right, Jake. Let's just go ahead and dive right into the game. Uh, Look at Tennessee, Jake. When you look at their offense, of course, Hendon Hooker took over for what was that? What's Milton?
Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. Yeah, I could not think of his first name.
Joe Milton the
After
third.
yeah, after the first couple of games, Milton. It's not that he was just terrible, Jake, but his deep ball accuracy was not good. I mean, he would overthrow everybody, and in come Hendon Hooker, and not only is he completing a better completion percentage on his passes, but his ability to run the ball is a weapon for that offense as well. What do you see when you look at this Tennessee offense?
Yeah, when Hooker come in, it pretty much started clicking like a well-oiled machine on that offensive side of the ball. I haven't watched a lot of Tennessee this year. I did watch the game last week, um, but I mean, Hooker is just a different animal than Joe Milton. He's more accurate, and and he's got a little bit of mobility too, so he can escape the pocket and get outside if he needs to make a play. And I think it's going to be a good challenge for Alabama. Now I know he probably won't be 100%. Because I mean he does have that lingering. I think it's a knee, ankle, calf, something like that that's bothering him. That he got hurt late in the game last week.
Right.
But he's not. I mean, he's not going to be 100%. But he's still going. I think still be effective enough that we're going to need to, you know, get after him a couple of plays. And you know, I don't like to hurt anybody, but I mean, you know, I don't want to see him get hurt. But we gonna have to scare him a little bit. I should say. You know,
Yeah,
to
yeah, make him think a little bit about it before he starts taking off and running a good bit.
right.
And
Yeah.
that's really a key to the game. I think there's two keys to this game, and kind of both of them have a lot to do with what happened last weekend against Ole Miss. Like you mentioned, Hooker went down late in that game with a lower leg injury. Not really sure how healthy he is,
Hmm.
but he's by and far the best option for Tennessee at quarterback because of his mobility and because of his accuracy compared to Joe Milton. But the other thing is defensively, Tennessee played 101 snaps
Hmm.
last week against Ole Miss, and that's going to take a toll on those defensive players for Tennessee. They have some solid players, but they're not that deep. That's a that's 101 plays is a lot.
That's a
I mean,
bunch.
that's
And
about 6 quarters of action, really. So they really played about a game and a
wow.
half last week. Tennessee's defense did. So I think that's going to come up huge, especially after the second quarter or so of the game. You could start seeing that Tennessee defense be wore out. This is going to be their 8th game in a row. They have not had a bye week yet, so they're like Alabama, no bye week yet. They're coming off a game where their defense played 101 snaps. So I think that's something to look out for too.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I know our coaches know that, and I expect to see Brian Robinson run the ball a lot early. Try to get them wore down, and like you said, by the second quarter, I mean you probably see some shaky legs out there, and like you said, they don't have the depth to just rotate guys out like Alabama has. So we
Right.
we kind of keep fresh players, but Tennessee don't have that luxury yet, and I think Josh Heupel is going to do a good job for them. It's going to take time to build depth, but yeah, I think we'll see a lot of Brian Robinson early in the game to try to extend plays and keep that defense on the field and make them tired later in the game.
Yeah, and I gotta admit something. I'm really surprised at how well Tennessee has played so far this year.
Yeah, I am too.
Josh Heupel's done a really good job for them, and I'll be honest with you, that's really shocking to me. I didn't think he was going to be able to get it done, but Hendon Hooker has been a pleasant surprise for that offense, and I don't think they're 4-3 right now, and had a really good chance of beating Ole Miss last week without Hendon Hooker and the play that he's played the last 3 games or 4 games that he started.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he's really turned things around for that Tennessee offense, and he's a big part of what they do. And if he's not 100% healthy, that's kind of good news for Alabama's defense because he's a tough guy to prepare for defensively and a tough guy to defend.
absolutely. And you got to think if Hooker was in the game against Pittsburgh, that game could have gone differently in Tennessee's favor. And Pittsburgh's probably one of the best teams in the ACC since Clemson's kind of struggling this year.
Yeah,
So,
and and Clemson actually goes to Pittsburgh
mhm,
this weekend to play. So
yeah,
uh,
you know,
Clemson may be getting that third L on the season.
mhm,
Um, that's a story for another day. But what an interesting
right,
season there in Clemson, South Carolina. But
absolutely,
uh, we've talked a lot about Hendon Hooker and how well he's played for Tennessee and how he's kind of carried that offense. They do have a good running game. I can't think of the running back's name
I
right now,
can't
but
either.
but
Yeah,
he's a good player. They got a
hmm
couple wideouts. Velus Jones Jr.'s played well for them. And they got a kid. He caught a touchdown pass actually last year against us, but his name slipped in my mind. Just full disclosure, we are recording this like almost at midnight, so
yeah,
it's really late. It's been a long day, a long week for each of us, but we wanted to get a podcast out. But
right,
so some names are not coming to us right away. But Tennessee offensively is going to be a challenge for Alabama. And when I say a challenge, what I mean it's not going to be like last week against Mississippi State, where you're playing a one-dimensional team. Tennessee is not a one-dimensional team.
Right.
They have the ability to not only run the ball with a good running back, but they have a quarterback that can make plays with his feet as well, and he's also an accurate passer. So there's going to be some plays made by that Tennessee offense. So I think it's important for Alabama's defense to play fundamental, sound, disciplined football against Tennessee, and if they do that, they should be okay.
Absolutely. And since we're seem like we're talking about the defense side of the ball, I me and a guy at work has been talking all week about it. But I've been very disappointed in our defensive line effort this year.
Yeah.
Them guys have got to step up, and this is a great it's any time to do it. It's time to start bullying some offensive lines around that I know you're capable of doing, but you hadn't shown it yet. So we got dudes down there. I mean, we got Mathis. Justin Avoidby. He has been absolutely nowhere this year. I mean, he's a distant memory because you don't ever hear his name on the stat sheet. LeBron Ray, I know he's dealt with injuries, but I think he's finally getting healthy now. We're going to be without Byron Young, it sounds like, for this week. But I mean, it's time for these guys on the defensive line to step up and make a couple plays this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Outside of Fedarian Mathis, there really hasn't been any plays made by
Hmm.
the interior defensive line. I mean, you mentioned them, Justin Eboigbe, LeBron Ray. Of course, LeBron Ray makes sense because he's really just now getting back into the lineup,
Right.
on a pretty consistent basis. So we can kind of see what he does moving forward. But Justin Eboigbe needs to make plays. Tim Smith needs to make plays.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, Byron Young is nicked up now. We'll see who kind of takes his spot this week. So I'm with you. I want to see some plays by that interior defensive line. We know what Will Anderson can do. We know what the guys in the back end can do. Uh, Jordan Battle showed last week that he might be ready to take that next step. I hope that he takes that next step and continues to be a playmaker for that defense because that is something you need if you want to win a championship. So, uh, defensively, I'm with you. I want to see the interior defensive line make plays in the backfield.
Absolutely. And funny thing, every time that LeBron Ray gets on the field, his number's like what, like 11 or 18 or something. I'm like,
18.
yeah, I'm like, who is 18? And then it says Ray. I'm like, why is a defensive lineman got 18? But it's fun. I don't know how they go about getting jerseys and stuff, but that's just funny that you see number 18 on a defensive line. But defensively, again, we talked about that this could be another game that they need to show up and show out just to prove, that yeah, we're back to being, out an Alabama type defense. And I don't know if we mentioned it on our review show of the Mississippi State game, but I was going to say that the missed tackles, that there wasn't hardly any missed tackles this week, it seemed like, or this past
Right.
week. So I hope that's getting cleared up a little bit because that kind of hindered us early in the season, and it just seems like we're finally getting fundamentally sound, as you would call it. So I just hope we continue to improve because we still got some tests ahead of us, and I
Yeah,
mean
for
it starts
sure.
Saturday night.
For sure. I mean, I'm with you. Just defensively, just play fundamental football, break down, make the open field tackle, and
Hmm.
play assignment football. Don't have blown coverages.
Right.
Don't miss the open field tackle when you can stop the ball carrier for 3 yards instead of 13. So
Hmm.
if they do that, they'll be just fine. They'll be one of the best defenses in the country. So hopefully that they can continue to make that progress that they started last week against Mississippi State, and we'll kind of see how that turns out. But offensively for Alabama, Jake, um, what are you expecting to see? Bryce Young, it seems like every game we talk about, he's 70% completion percentage for
Hmm.
300 plus yards and a couple touchdowns. So, are you expecting that type of performance again? How do you think Bill O'Brien's going to call the game this weekend?
Like I said earlier, I believe that we're going to see a lot of Brian Robinson, Roydale Williams type deal. Just because like you said, Tennessee had 101 snaps on defense last week, so they may have gotten a little bit of rest, but practicing all week, they may come in on jello legs. Who knows? But then again, they may come out strong and seeking revenge since they haven't won what 13 games. So
14 in a row.
14 in a row. So I mean, they may have a chip on their shoulder, but I can see Bryce having a big game as well, just because Bryce is doing Bryce things right now, and I hope that the two and Billingsley can step up because they've been struggling here lately, and I feel like we may need them because it feels like everybody is going to start honing in on Mechie and Williams. We just got to get the third option out there, and Billingsley and the two can be it. They just got to make the plays when their time's called.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought those two names up because that's the two guys that I want to watch most on Saturday
Mhm.
because the last, what, 3 weeks maybe,
Yeah.
they have just been no shows.
Hmm.
So it's time for those guys to make some plays again. Well, they shown early in the season what they can do, but it's about that consistency and performance. And Coach Saban talks about that all the time. That's what he harps on more than anything else is consistency and performance. So
Hmm.
whatever the reason is of why they're struggling, I don't know. But it's time for those guys to play more consistent ball because, like you said, teams are going to be focusing in on Mechie. They're going to be focusing in on Williams. So can Trayshawn Holden, Slade Bolden, Cameron Latou, and Jaleel Billingsley kind of pick up the slack when those two guys are, garnering all the attention from the opposing defenses. So I'm with you. I think those two guys are very important moving forward for this offense because you kind of know what you have in everybody else.
Right.
Because everybody else has kind of played for the most part, pretty consistently all year long. Bryce Young's been solid all year. B Rob has been solid pretty much for the entire season. Rodell Williams is showing that he can be a consistent playmaker. The offensive line gets better and
Hmm.
better each and every game.
Yep.
Uh, John Mechie had his first 100-yard receiving game last week. Jamison Williams has been the most consistent guy out wide all year. So it's really about Latou and Billingsley and those two guys being consistent for Bryce Young and making plays for the offense.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the offensive line because that's what I was going to go to next. Like you said, they have improved each and every week. We've got those two monsters on the left hand side, Neal and Cohen, and they're playing lights out. Uh, Dalcourt, it seems like he's getting his snaps honed in a little bit better, which is great to see. And the right hand side, Ekior and Owens, they're starting to play a little bit better. I don't think Owens gave up his sack last week, if I remember correctly. So I think it's finally getting a little bit better offensive line wise.
Yeah, hey, people have talked about Emil Ekiyor a little bit this year, how he's not performing as well as he did last year. I just want to remind you that the two guys that he was playing in between last year are both now starters in the NFL. Landon Dickerson was at
Yeah,
center, and and I mean, well, not the one guy. One guy, other guy was Evan Neal, who's going
yeah,
to be a top 5 pick this next year in the draft. So he was playing
yeah,
between Evan Neal and Landon Dickerson.
yeah.
So I mean, it's a little different now. Now he's playing between a guy who's still learning how to play right tackle in Chris
Hmm.
Owens and a guy who's made 7 starts at center now in college football. So
Yeah.
that's a big change. So a
Hmm.
lot more has been put on Emil Ekiyor this year, and it's not that he's been bad. It's just that eh, when you notice things more when you're not playing beside two NFL starters, and that's what
Right.
Neal and Landon Dickerson are. So that's the
Absolutely.
that's the difference from last year. Ekiyor hasn't become a worse player.
Hmm.
He's probably a better player now, but
Yeah.
he's not. He don't have better dudes around him like he did last year.
Absolutely, and I'm not going to bash him. I couldn't believe that people were saying that he's kind of stunk it up this year because I don't think he has. I mean, like we said, Owens seems like he was our weakest link on the offensive line, but now he's finally honing it in, and it's if they start gelling like they are right now, they're going to be dangerous. Later in the season, that's great to see because I think they're finally getting right, and that offense is coming alive. So,
Well, and like everything else, when it's Alabama, it's put under a magnifying glass.
oh,
So the
yeah.
offensive line has not been as bad this year as what it's been made out to be.
Right.
So I mean, it's just like everything. It's blown out of proportion a little bit. Now it's not been as good as it should be, but it hasn't been awful. I
Hmm.
mean, 90% of college programs would trade our offensive line for theirs right now. So
Oh yeah.
ask Clemson if they would like to have Chris Owens and Emil Ekiyor on that starting offensive line for them.
I guarantee they would like to trade quarterbacks. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
most every team in the country would.
right. Absolutely. maybe besides Ole Miss, but yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that that the offense is starting to gel, like I believe they can, and I said it on our show last night, best of the West that we do, and or that I do, but I of course being an Alabama fan, I want to see Alabama get in the SEC championship game because, like I said, I want to see Georgia play an offense like Alabama's.
Yeah.
Because when Alabama is clicking on offense, I don't think anybody can stop, and I don't think we can be beat. If we just haven't clicked as well as we could yet, I think offensively, there's still plenty of time to though.
It's a work in progress, Jake, because
Hmm.
of all the new faces,
Right.
and now those new faces are starting to become more recognizable faces. So
Hmm.
the further the season goes along, the better they're going to be, and I have full confidence in this team that they can compete with anybody in the country, including Georgia. So
Hmm.
I have all the confidence in the world in this team. I think they have a chance to win the championship. It's just a matter of taking it one game at a time and improving each and every week.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you real quick because I asked Kevin on the show last night. We're within 2 weeks of the actual BCS rankings being put out by the
College
actual
football
committee,
playoff.
college football playoff, by the actual people. You
Yeah.
know, and it's all about rankings.
Hmm.
And I asked him last night. I said, "This is what makes it different having humans looking at that than computers because." I'm not trying to be a homer, but to me, I believe Alabama is better than whoever third is in Cincinnati.
Yes.
That's just my
Yes.
personal opinion. So
I guarantee you, if Alabama still only has the one loss to A&M,
mhm,
they will be the number two team in the country.
I agree 100%.
They may be number three behind Oklahoma,
Hmm.
maybe, but they're not going to be behind Cincinnati. I would almost be willing to bet the house on it.
Yeah, I agree too because I just feel like you put Alabama and Cincinnati on a neutral field or a home and home or whatever, it's Alabama blows them out
Yeah. Yeah.
each time. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But
Mhm.
that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about that here in a couple of weeks. I believe what is
Yeah,
it, like November 6th or 7th when the first rankings
November
come out.
6th, maybe second. I can't remember, but yeah,
Yeah, so
it's like a couple of weeks.
yeah. Well, Jake, we've talked about the game a little bit. I think it's time now to kind of give our score predictions. Um, and I guess you give your offensive and defensive MVPs. Let's say this. Let's make a caveat: no Bryce Young on offense, and no Will Anderson on defense.
Fair enough. um, my score prediction, I think Alabama wins 42-17. I still think they covered because I don't think Hendon Hooker is going to be healthy. If it was healthy, it might be a closer game, but I think they still cover. Maybe four. I'll go 45-17. But offensively, I will pick. I'm gonna pick Williams. I think Williams will have a big game
Okay.
uh, this week. And defensively, I'm going to go with Toa. I think he's starting to play a little bit better. He had 14 tackles last week. I like to see him build on it, so I'm gonna go with him this week.
All right, I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'm right there with you in a score prediction. I think if Hooker was 100% healthy, you could possibly see Tennessee get to around 20 points or so, 21. But without Hooker being 100%, I'm going to say Alabama wins 48-13.
That's a good
Uh,
pick.
so we're pretty much right there in the same neighborhood.
Hmm.
Offensively, I'm going to go with John Mechie. We're both going with wide receivers. I'm going to go with Mechie. It seems like he's starting to just build confidence and
Yep,
become a better player each and every week. So, and I seen today that he is tied for first in the country for most broken tackles by a wide receiver.
I didn't know that.
So that's a pretty interesting stat. So
It is.
I'm looking for Mechie to have a big game again this week. And defensively, I'm going to go with the guy beside Henry To'oTo'o. I'm going to go Christian Harris.
Mhm.
He's kind of fallen off the map a little bit the last month or so.
Yeah.
It's time for him to rebound. So I wanted to go with To'oTo'o because he's playing against his former team, but you took him, so I'm going to take the guy that lines up beside him there on the defense in Christian Harris. I think he'll have a bounce back game this week against the Vols.
Yeah, it's it's funny. We're going wide receivers and linebackers this week. So
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm just ready for the game to be here. It's gonna be a great game. It's gonna be under those incredible lights at T Town. T Town's gonna be rocking, and I'm excited because I'm not gonna be there. I'll be there in spirit, but I'm gonna be
yeah,
set. I'm gonna be sitting in my recliner watching it,
that's
so
right.
I don't have to get hit by golf balls and mustard bottles and bottle or water bottles and everything else. But real quick, I don't think we mentioned it the other night, but if I remember correctly, I saw like Saban's press conference. Somebody brought up about Will Anderson about him giving 100%, and Saban, kind of laughed and said, "Well, I asked him if he can give 110% now." I love that,
Yeah.
because Saban wants, if you give 100%, he wants you to give 110%. You get to 110, you get 120. I mean, just keep getting better, and that's what I love to see, and that's what Saban wants him to do.
Yeah, and Anderson has that kind of dog mentality, man.
Oh man,
It's all business with Will Anderson.
yeah, it is. And if we can get everybody on that team to make it a business,
Yeah,
on Saturday nights and Saturdays, we'll be in great shape.
that's right. All right, guys. Hey, that's going to do it for today's episode. Appreciate everybody watching. Once again, this episode is brought to you by betonline.ag. We appreciate that partnership that we have with those guys through the Believe Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple
Hmm.
Podcasts, Spotify, just wherever you find great podcasts, you can find the Tide Talk podcast. Make sure you jump in the comment section below on YouTube. Answer the question of the day: is Tennessee Alabama's biggest rivalry? Why for yes or N for no? Answer that right now. We certainly appreciate that. All right, Jake, if you don't have anything else to add, we're going to hop off tonight and hopefully Alabama can get them a big win tomorrow against the Tennessee Volunteers.
Absolutely. And next week, we hope we don't look like zombies on here because I
Yeah,
think we're both exhausted.
I'm exhausted, man. Hey,
Yeah.
but we powered through it. We were able to
Yeah, we
get through
did.
it. We said we were going to go 15 minutes, and like always, we were going to
It's
go for
30.
about 30.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's fun as
It's
always.
fun. Hey guys, we really appreciate everybody listening. Y'all take care and roll tide.
Roll Tide.